Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. UFC Nashville answered some much-needed questions about the bantamweight division. We also got a real, legitimate title contender in the strawweight division. A blast from the past, but Tatiana Suarez has definitely called her shot. Folks, breaking it down with me, as always, the New Mexico native himself, the Santa Fe Bomber. Brother, it was a wash on the week. Tough picks. Fights went this way, they went the other way, but otherwise, we have a lot to talk about. AJ, how you feeling?
Derek, this was actually a quintessential week of what I consider MMA, brother. We think we know what's going on a lot of these times, but when you knuckle up and you got two people standing in the octagon, sometimes MMA math just does not work out, brother. And, you know, to a lot of our surprise, my surprise and things, there's some of these fights that went the opposite way, but still very entertaining week of fights for me, brother. How'd you like it?
I thought that the fights themselves, right, they answered a lot of questions. There was some violence, some skilled violence. There was also a little left to be desired, right? Like, if this was the card that you said, hey, I'm going to tell my buddies high-level MMA this weekend, you got to tune in. I'm telling you, this guy Cory Sandhagen, he's on another level when it comes down to striking. And then he just lay and prayed for, 5 rounds straight. He did what he needed to do to get the victory, but a little left to be desired in the entertainment factor, folks. So, that's definitely part of the game. But, AJ, I can't lie to you. I was sleeping through a couple of these fights, man. I mean, do you have that guilty pleasure as well, or do you just stay wide awake the whole time wired?
No, I had that guilty pleasure too, my brother, especially with the kind of not weird start time, but over here it was like 5 p.m., so it was middle of the day. We kind of got things going. We were grilling, and to be honest, Derek, I didn't really sleep through all of them, but I was definitely at the grill, and I forgot a couple of the fights for sure, and I had to go back this morning and watch. And that's how these cards are sometimes. They're not, like I said before in the pre-show, we were talking about the numbered cards draw all the attention, and these do too. These draw for the non-casuals, for the hardcore fans. These are the fights we like to watch. But I agree with you. Sometimes the entertainment factor on these just slack just a little bit.
Yeah, there was still some good names that definitely came out the woodworks, right? You got Asu Amabayev, his win over Ode Osborne. It looks like we have a real contender in the flyweight division. Dennis Bazookia, he put a good performance on against Sean Woodson. I mean, what can you say? Billy Q did his thing. We're going to break it down all and more. Folks, if you have not subscribed yet, you should absolutely be smashing that subscribe button right now. Tell a friend to tell a friend, because as always, this is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. And while we might have had to do some extra prep before we recorded, we came prepared, baby, as always. So, AJ, real quick, tell the people where they could find you on all non-Bloody Water podcast activities.
Literally across the entire spectrum, folks. Santa Fe Bomber, whether it's Instagram, X, or now on YouTube is also, we're dropping our own content there. You got to go subscribe, like just here too. Don't be a bad friend. Make sure you're sharing it with your friends. Pass the word along. It's some entertainment as well. We're building that community. But one thing I did want to highlight, folks, since you're already here, Derick said it's the best. Subscribe. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. We're your favorite fighter's favorite fight show for a reason, especially because on these sleepers we were highlighting for you folks, it may not have been the most entertaining fight card, but our sleepers provided, the pick locks provided, there were things out there. So if you're betting with us, you're making them nuggets of gold.
That's right. I couldn't have said it better myself. Folks, let's talk into some, accountability. Let's talk about that recap. All right, folks, as you can see here, up and down weekend for us, 3 up, 3 down, so even spread across the board. But what I want you to focus on right here is that AJ hit on his prop right here. So let me bring up the prop sheet. Tatiana Suarez, submission, plus 115. Take that to the bank and cash it. Now, on the other hand, I did have Kennedy Nzechukwu with the TKO prop lock of the night. AJ, there's misses, and then there's just like swing, whiff, and then send the bat flying into the stands. I think that's kind of what I did, because Dustin Jacoby came up and he definitely hit on his TKO prop. I think he was looking at, I actually got the number right here, plus 385 for his TKO prop. So we're going to have to clean that up. But what made you so confident in that Tatiana Suarez submission victory that she'd be able to get it done against one of the best to do it, Jessica Andrade?
One of the best to do it, and took a little longer than I thought, Derek, but what made me confident, if you just go back and you watch what Tatiana Suarez was doing before her break and then now back after, it is a classic clinical Tatiana Suarez approach. Get close, clinch them up, put him to sleep. Even the announcers are saying it in the commentary in the fight. I mean, to me, brother, it was just like death and taxes. Tatiana Suarez submission looks very good, although I was a little surprised because I thought the TKO might be coming as well, because Jessica Andrade looked formidable in the defense, Derek.
That's right. Once she started unloading a little bit too, I was like, ooh, okay, things might get a little scary. But you hit. That's what's important. And now, folks, let's talk about the breakdown of the fights that we had this weekend.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. AJ, it might not be the most entertaining methodology of being able to finish a fight or not finish a fight, dominate a fight, win a fight. But when you have a short notice replacement on 2 weeks, right, where it went from being high risk, high reward with Umar Nurmagomedov to even higher risk, lower reward with Rob Font, right? Like, you basically don't win anything. You're just defending your number. There's no reason that Cory Sandhagen should go out there, take unnecessary risks, and potentially lose and go back in the queue for a title shot, right? So he said, I'm going to dominate it. I'm going to do it in the way of least resistance, and I'm going to secure my title shot. And he absolutely did that. Doesn't look like he went over any fans or, impressed the champion, Aljamain Sterling, for a rematch. But the point is, he did what he needed to do, right? There's no fault that should be given here.
Not one bit, Derek. And even in the pre-show, we were talking about what we liked most about Cory Sandhagen's game is the evolution he's showing. Mm-hmm. He just showed another layer to that evolution. He did what TJ Dillashaw did to him. Control him, put him on the back, and it literally dominate the entire fight. Well, now he just showed that he learned from that experience and didn't put himself in danger. Because if you go knuckle to knuckle with Rob Font, man, you were looking at a very dangerous opponent and quite possibly either a very short night or a long nap. Like, either way, it's a dangerous situation for Cory Sandhagen to take. I think he did the smart thing. You can't really fault him too much because none of us are going to go in there toe-to-toe with Rob Font either.
I mean, that's true. And the other thing you have to take into consideration is that given the stylistic difference between the fighters, like, Rob Font looked like he was starting to have a little success on the feet before the takedown came. And this ultimately was Cory Sandhagen versus Chito Vera, like 2.0, number 2, right? Because he just said, every time I'm going to shoot on that single, and if you give me the takedown, I'm just going to take it round after round after round. That's exactly what we said in the pre-show, is that if you don't evolve over the course of the 5 rounds, he's just going to find whatever method is easiest to take you down and beat you. So I thought it was an incredibly impressive performance in terms of like a high-level, self-proclaimed masterclass victory here against Rob Font. My other question here isn't really in regards to Cory Sandhagen. I want to talk about his injury that he said he suffered, but more about Rob Font. He came off a spectacular victory against Adrian Yanez, kind of brought you back into the mix, and then you take a short notice fight for an opportunity, hoping, same thing that Jessica Andrade did, hoping with this win, I'm really solidified in the title picture. You lost in pretty devastating fashion. Where do we go with Rob Font now?
It's interesting, Derek, because before you said for Cory Sandhagen, this was kind of a win and almost a loss-lose kind of situation. Same thing for Rob Font, man. I actually feel his not his character, but his fight style and the way he presents himself in MMA kind of suffered a little bit of loss here because of that lack of evolution through the fight. Now, to me, at least, it seems like Rob Font has really solidified himself as that top 5 to top 8 kind of fighter that's going to be fighting the cream of the crop coming up. The Umars, the all the people that are going to be looking for the title. Now they just have to go through Rob Font. Do you also think he's been relegated to a little bit more of the back seat, or is this guy 2 fights away from seeing possibly sniffing that gold?
Well, after seeing him getting out-grappled the way he did against a guy who is not proclaimed to be the greatest grappler, a man who we've seen develop his grappling in real time, right? Seeing that level of domination, given it was on short notice, it just makes me a little worried that, he will just be that top 5 gatekeeper. But Rob Font, I think, is always a live dog in any fight that he's in, especially if he's able to let his hands go. Either way, Cory Sandhagen did say that he suffered potentially either an elbow or a tricep injury in the first round of the fight, so he wanted to play it easy, play it safe, so it's the shortest turnaround for a championship fight against either Sean O'Malley or Aljamain Sterling. So my question, and then we'll move on to the next fight, is does Cory Sandhagen indeed get the next shot for the title, or do we think this injury is going to put him back in the queue once again? So it's almost like this fight didn't even matter.
Derek, I don't want to say it, but I do think it's almost like this fight doesn't matter for some reason. Whether Sean O'Malley wins or Aljo wins or something like that, I feel like Cory Sandhagen is going to do another thing to himself where he puts somebody else in front of him and goes, oh, well, this guy might need to fight. Let's say Sugar wins. And then they get the rematch, or maybe they don't get the rematch, but then Rob comes in and says, I want to fight you now because you beat up my boy. It seems like Cory Sandhagen has some chess pieces in front of him that are a little harder to move. Do you see it the same way, or is Cory Sandhagen next up no matter what?
I kind of see it like the Dricus Duplessis situation where he fought and then the title fight's happening really soon, like literally in 2 weeks, right? So it's like, will you be ready for a quick turnaround? And if not, will they just throw somebody else in your place? Well, the two top contenders are currently injured, Merab and Cory Sandhagen. So if we really take a look at it, the only person who makes sense right now there's nobody, man. It's literally Merab, O'Malley, Sandhagen, Jan, Cejudo, Vera, Font. Like, they all just fought in that little gambit right there. Interesting times ahead for the bantamweight division, but that was a fantastic win over Cory Sandhagen, a precise, a technical, a precision-type victory right there. All right. Now, the return of Tatiana Suarez, AJ. We've been calling it for a long time. I've been very, very high on Tatiana Suarez. However, we thought that the neck injuries, back injuries probably plagued her career, and then it would be too late to really invigorate herself in the title picture today. Well, it looks like that's the furthest thing from the truth because she is steamrolling, man. Takedown, submission, bread and butter. She did it at 125 against a larger opponent. She did it at 115 against a smaller opponent. How does she fare if we start throwing her into that mix? And of course, we're going to break this down on the rankings review, brother. But we start talking about the Weili's, Lemoshes, Rose Namajunas just moved up, right? But, even if she got the fight against Vina Jandiroba, do we think that she does the same thing that she did here against Jessica Andrade?
I do, Derek, especially with the strength disparity she's going to present against a lot of these females. We were talking about how Jessica Andrade is one of, a smaller fighter at 115, but one of the strongest fighters at 115. She's able to bounce up to 125 and still compete in the strength level and have that knockout power. Well, we just saw Tatiana Suarez. Doesn't give a shit about the power, ate a couple of them on the chin, kept rolling, kept pressuring, kept going about the game plan. And we saw Tatiana Suarez literally muscle up and be able to control Jessica Andrade. Looked very nice. I think she's going to be able to do that to the rest of the girls in there. The question is, what happens when she gets swept and put on her back? But at the same point, Tatiana Suarez has great back fighting offense for the jiu-jitsu. So she feels like the complete opponent. The problem that I see being presented to her is what happens when she has a slick striker that's able to shut down those attempts at takedowns, shut down the grappling, shut down the offense, really get the respect and put you on a back foot. When Tatiana Suarez gets those, the 10,000 yard stare and like, oh shit, my game plan's not working. That's what I'm excited to see. Do you see a fighter that's able to present either that problem or another problem that could present to Tatiana Suarez?
It's tough, man. It's hard to really say that in the top 5, top 8, top 10, right? There is one person that I think it would be interesting to see how they match up, and that would be Mackenzie Dern. I'd be really interested to see what would the game plan be, because if you take her down, well, the jiu-jitsu is slick enough to where you might have to really be careful on the different passes and, takes that you're making there. I do want to note that she does currently, I'm pretty sure this is her boyfriend, Patchy Mix, right? The current champion over there in Bellator. She's training with him. He's super duper high level. So in terms of the striking, I think that he might be able to shore up some of her striking stuff too, even though he's a jiu-jitsu specialist himself. So both of these guys, either way, Tatiana Suarez, I guess this is kind of the point. I think that she is on a wrecking path, and a lot of people are proclaiming her to say that she could be a champion not just at 115, but at 125 and 135. Are we being a little hyperbolic when we say stuff like that, or do you think that she's really this like once-in-a-generation talent?
No, I think we're being a little hyperbolic, Derek. Don't get me wrong. I am on the Tatiana Suarez hype train for sure. We've been on there for a while, man. We've been proclaiming her return, and now that she's here, we've been hyping it up even more. Mm-hmm. But triple champ, man, that's rarefied air these days. And I don't know. I don't really see it happen against the 135ers. We'll see if there's even, a mix, a draw of people making a comeuppance about getting up there. But I don't see it, Derek. Do you?
Well, I was the one saying that when we're talking about who could be the champion in these divisions, and I was all like, well, she's hurt. She's on the shelf right now, but Tatiana Suarez can be that champion. I think she'd be able to get it done at 115 and 125. Now, 135, those are some big girls right there. So I don't know. Either way, massive victory by Tatiana Suarez. She has collected the third former champion on her resume. Beautiful to see. And let's move on to a short but stunning victory right here. Dustin Jacoby, the Hanyak. He is matched up with Kennedy Nzechukwu, and I think everybody already kind of wrote him off going into this fight, right? Nzechukwu, if you're looking at frame, if you're looking at intangibles, overall skill set, durability, so we thought it was all in the favor of Kennedy Nzechukwu. However, once he starts getting downhill and fists start getting exchanged, He caught him. AJ, he caught him. Talk to us. What happened?
Woo, Derick, we say it all the time. Speed beats power, precision beats speed, and it looked like Jacoby had all of them, brother. Out here, folks, a little about me. I teach, personal training, striking, self-defense, all that stuff out here, and I tell my students all the time, you don't need to just blast a hole through their face. You just need to hit them on the button, and this is a perfect example, bro. Jacoby just literally slid back, came back with that cross right, beautiful counter strike, barely tapped the button, and we saw what happened. Derick, do you think it was just a tad bit of a short stoppage, of a quick stoppage? Because don't get me wrong, if it would have happened maybe a half second sooner, I was like, all right, Nzechukwu out. But the way it kind of took a little bit longer, it looked like Kennedy was kind of getting back into the mix. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to take anything away from Jacoby, but I do think there might have been a little more meat to these bones. One, what do you think about the knockout? And two, do you think it was a short stop?
First part for the knockout, I felt that everything you said was pretty much on point. The only thing that I'm just a little disappointed on is when you're in there and you're exchanging, you have to bring your hand back to your chin. You just got to. You can't leave your arms out there while you're throwing and mix them up combos, because he caught him perfect. It looked like one of those that did not. It wasn't a big load up. It was just down the pipe, caught him, and it snapped his head. That's what happens, right? Is that the brain, it's the button, right? Now, in regards to the early stoppage, I did in real time. I was like, oh, that's early, bro. Come on, give my man a chance. Until you start seeing Jacoby is laying that ground and pound, and Nzechukwu isn't really responding or defending properly until Jacoby gets pulled off. Then he says, oh, come on, bro. And it's like, well, you got to show them something. The referees have a very difficult job. You have to show them something, and they cannot read your mind. So if they say, hey, you got to work out of this, you got to do something, and you don't do nothing, you can't be mad when they stop the fight. And it felt like Nzechukwu had that immediate realization. Like, at first he was pissed, and then he was like, all right, he got me. It is what it is. And I think that this is really what this matchup comes down to. He got caught. Dustin Jacoby is a very dangerous fighter because, one, pure kickboxer who, if you get into these firefights in the first round, he is the most dangerous there. You drag him out, which is what I kind of thought this fight was going to end up. That's when people start having success. So that is my take on the situation. Fantastic victory by Dustin Jacoby. There's nothing that you can say other than sometimes you get caught, and it is what it is, right?
That's what it is, brother. Every puncher has a chance. And like you said, Jacoby is dangerous in that first round. I'd have liked to see a little more wrestling out of Kennedy. Like let's say that fight just made it past there and we're able to see that. But you get caught, you get caught. Nothing much else to say about it, brother.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to a highlight victory. Diego Lopes, submission specialist, I see, right? He came in. He made his mark in the Movsar Evloev fight. A ton of submission attempts. This dude's jiu-jitsu is absolutely insane. And he fights another black belt, Gavin Tucker. Haven't seen him in a while. We were questioning, we're like, what happened to him after 2021? I guess he had a couple shoulder surgeries, right? So he was on the shelf a little bit. He comes back. He fights this up-and-comer Diego Lopes, not a lot of name value, but incredibly dangerous opponent. And he immediately tries to grapple with the jiu-jitsu guy. So it's like IQ right there was a little off. Maybe we didn't do our film study, or maybe he felt confident enough as a black belt that he says, man, I'll be all right. You want to play that jiu-jitsu. Well, he got caught in a triangle, and that was all she wrote, AJ. What were your thoughts?
Derick, I'm all about accountability, but I don't think anybody saw Gavin Tucker wanting to go into the jiu-jitsu game of Diego Lopes, brother. That was kind of stunning for me, to be honest, because if we've learned anything from Diego Lopes' short notice first fight, it's this dude's a savage on the ground. How many? You said a bunch of attempts for Mozart. If I forget, it was at least like 8 or something. It was a ridiculous amount. And this guy, what I like about him is he's just consistently trying for it. That's his best defense on the ground, is he's trying to snap one of your limbs off. So you're always thinking about things. So I did not at all expect Gavin Tucker to go into the lion's den and really try and survive in there. But sure enough, he did. This one, Derick, to me, this was one of those ones where I can no longer discount Diego Lopes or anything that is in his camp unless we're at the top like 10, top 15, somewhere around there, because this dude's legit. I mean, short notice or not, barely coming in, having no hype, whether you think he's cringe or not from the tattoos and the 90s, boy band style haircut, doesn't matter, because this dude can absolutely fight. How high do you think the ceiling is for Diego Lopes going forward?
I think the ceiling is incredibly high for him until he fights a striker who is super technical, super defensively sound, and has incredible takedown defense. I think he's going to start soaring through these fights. Now, the reason why I was high on Diego Lopes was because, one, he's way bigger than Gavin Tucker frame-wise. He's huge for the division. Two, explosive on the feet. Three, even more explosive on the ground. That was it. It's the explosion. I thought Gavin Tucker, overall, as a package, is the better fighter. Well-rounded, technical, defensively sound at times. But Diego Lopes brings unpredictability. And when he jumps on a triangle, he is technically sound enough to be able to lock that triangle in to, one, keep you there, break your posture, and two, just kind of alternate and wait for you. What do you want? I'm either going to choke you with the triangle or I'm going to take your arm. It is your choice. And it's a very powerful feeling because that's one of my favorite submissions to pull, the triangle. Long leg guys, big frame, long, tall, skinny guys like Diego Lopes, he can hit that all day long. And I thought that this was almost too easy to call personally, right? Even though this was it was a toss-up more or less, given the overall packages. When you decide to play jiu-jitsu with Diego Lopes in the first round, when you're not sweaty yet, it's just, like I said, it kind of lay up, right? Any other thoughts on this one?
Man, it was lofty ambitions coming out of Gavin Tucker. And all I could think, Derick, when it was going on as a jiu-jitsu and a wrestling novice, I was literally sitting there like, man, this looks like a position I've been in many times where it sucks. I have no idea what to do, no idea what's going on. And it looked like Gavin Tucker was in that exact same situation, getting his arm cranked. That's
right. Big win by Diego Lopes. And finally, we showed once he gets a full camp, man, dangerous as ever. All right. The bulldozer Tanner Boser gets the big unanimous decision victory against Alexa Camur. And AJ, man, I will have to say, being like I am a Boser fan, like this was a feel-good win. This was like, oh man, I'm glad you got the win. This was the final fight on his contract. And he did it in what we had mentioned before was the most winnable fight of really like the last 5 that he's gotten, 5 or 6. However, I felt that in this matchup, I think don't take into account the urgency that one has when their job is on the line. Like sometimes I really fail to keep that into account. And I felt like Boser fought with a different level of urgency in this fight than we've seen with some of his others. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%, Derick. I like that you said this is a feel-good fight for Boser. To me, as well as a feel-good fight, but this is also a Boser of the past that came back, more like a rejuvenated, a volume 2, if you will. Tanner Boser, yeah, he at one point in his career, he was slower. He was kind of a little bit more of a plotter. Now, bro, he's bouncing around. He's slick. He's firing on all cylinders. I really like this fight for Tanner Boser.
This was a tough one, too, because Alexa Camur, we've seen success from him, especially look at the last fight, man. You go into that close fight against Nicholas Negomereanu, right? A pressure guy, power, nonstop moving. Tanner Boser pretty much had the same level of fight, but was able to just outwork him. It was simply outworking. It wasn't really anything crazy. Of course, people are praising the incredible chin of Camur, but we know Boser has never really had that crazy pop. He's really in that light heavyweight mix. I don't want to make any excuses because Tanner Boser rightfully won the fight, like domination style, right? But I felt like Camur was just off tonight, man. We didn't see him throw. I said he got that slick striking. We saw almost none of it. They were both gassed out after round 2, but Camur was extra gassed out, just really fighting on heart from what I felt like. Not to disparage anybody because it takes 2 to tango, but I just felt like Tanner Boser showed up and Camur maybe did not. Maybe it's an experience thing. Do you have anything on that or am I crazy?
No, I saw exactly what you were doing, Derick, or what you saw too, because I expected not a little more out of Camur, but a different look in his eye. He was sitting there. I was expecting him to be a little more dominant in the fight, but there's a couple times where he's on the fence and just kind of going with the punches and just trying to find any little grasp to hold on to. Where Tanner Boser was in control, and we haven't really seen Tanner Boser fight like that in at least a long time. I expected the younger version or the younger fighter in Camur to really come back and kind of have that athleticism carry him through a lot. But like you said, both guys were gassed after round 2. Both of them had that 1,000-yard stare. It was an interesting one, but I do think a lot of that came down to that Camur, he needed this win as well, but it seemed like Tanner Boser knew he needed the win more and really resonated with that as well and kind of made it a little more animalistic, if you will.
That's right. Fantastic win by Tanner Boser. He did his thing. He bulldozed, and hopefully we see him again in the UFC cage. All right, folks, before we move on to this next fight, I want to let you know that there's a reason why in the beginning of our preview shows, we pop open the picks, right? And we just say, hey, here's the picks, take a screenshot, go run with it, and then let us know when you come back, when you won all your money and all that good stuff, right? But then we tell you, hey, if you want to know why we're picking these fighters and if you want to know any caveats around this pick, then you need to tune into the actual show. And this is going to be your incentive because Ludovic Klein, the parlay buster, gets the big unanimous decision victory over Ignacio Bahamondes. AJ, before we jump into this, I think it is fair to say we did acknowledge that if there's anybody who can play spoiler and if there's anybody who can really use his skill set and his craftsmanship, veteranship, I guess you should say, to get the victory here against who arguably should win, the younger, more talented, larger frame fighter, Ignacio Bahamondes, pure talent, not technical ability, it's Ludovic Klein. Any thoughts on that?
Man, Derick, when you're right, brother. We talk about accountability on the show, folks. You need some accountability yourself, because if you didn't hear Derick say there's a prop buster on the pre-show, this was it. And we kind of all saw exactly how it unfolded. We were talking about how Ludovic Klein has the ability to take Ignacio Bahamondes down and hold him there. And if he's able to do that, he's going to win the fight. What did we see? Ludovic Klein, Mr. Highlight. Yeah, he didn't show out the highlights, but he showed out a highlight of his mental capacity and knew how to win the fight the easiest way. Again, nobody wants to go knuckle to knuckle with Bahamondes. We've seen it end badly for a lot of people. Ludovic Klein shows up, does what he needs to do. You can't be mad at it. And like I said, folks, if you did not catch the pre-show, that's your own fault. You need to learn better and make sure you click on that subscribe button.
That's right. And at the end of the day, accountability all across the board. We still picked Ignacio Bahamondes for the Bloody Water Podcast consensus picks. Once again, you can't ignore the talent, the raw talent that this fighter has, the frame, the ability to be able to put damage on his opponents. But in the Cory Sandhagen-esque style, Ludovic Klein said, why fight that fight when I can just take the least resistance, the path to least resistance, the easiest methodology of winning? I'm going to take him down. I'm going to get the decision victory, and look at me. Now I've strung together a couple of wins, right? So big win by Ludovic Klein. My question to you is that Ignacio Bahamondes, now we're starting to see a hole, right? And the hole looks like the faster fighters, the speedier fighters who have good takedown capacities. Bahamondes is struggling because he's a really great at-range fighter, and he should be able to use that frame to keep people at range. But when you have a guy who's faster than you, it's kind of hard to do that, right?
It's funny the ebb and flow we see with how MMA is always presented, Derick. Sometimes, for a while there, the Sambo was on top because it couldn't escape the feet lock. And then the wrestling comes back, boxing comes back. Maintaining range has always been a big one. If you're a big guy and you're able to actually fight at range, you have this skill that nobody else can kind of maneuver around. We haven't found that Mike Tyson that's able to dip up under your guard and come in and hurt you to the body yet. Well, it turns out we have found the wrestlers that are able to dip up under your guard, get to a body lock and put you down, hold you there the entire time. And especially with Bahamondes in this fight, when he wasn't really working anything with his legs, he wasn't working for a sweep, he wasn't kicking off, he wasn't doing anything productive to get out of there. He was just kind of chilling, like waiting, surviving. That's kind of it. That was the big hole. And if we can see more fighters kind of exploit that and get to those advantageous positions, I think the game's going to grow in general. But also at that same point, I think Bahamondes, look out for him in a couple years. This boy is going to be an absolute savage.
That's right. It takes a couple of these learning lessons right here to come out on top. But for now, big win by Mr. Highlight Ludovic Klein. All right, folks, that is your main card recap. And with that being said, let's take a quick dive into some prelims, AJ, before we do a rankings review here. Now, what I wanted to talk about here today, because we had mentioned a little bit, prelims were there was something left to be desired, right? This whole card, right? It was cool. There was some good fights. But when we're talking about who really did some damage, first one that I want to highlight, AJ, we talked about this fight, Cody Durden versus Jake Hadley. And I told you there's something about this guy, Cody Durden. Don't know what it is, but he knows how to win fights. What does he do against the young, hot up-and-comer Jake Hadley? Well, he puts it on him, takes him down 4 of 6 times. Total strikes weren't anything really too crazy, but 30-27s across the board. What'd you think of it?
Derick, all I can really say for this one, what I think Cody Durden did to win this fight was be an absolute savage, bro. This guy, when his arm was basically like 120 degrees, like this thing was behind his shoulder basically, and no tap, just a lot of grimace. Just you could tell it was hurt because when he got out of the situation, he didn't even use his arm to grab hold. He just kind of let it hang there for a little bit. Cody Durden is an all-around badass just from being able to fight that kind of or fight off that submission attempt, but also have the same kind of fight he did, Derick, because this guy never said quit. He never said die. They stayed toe-to-toe, knuckle-to-knuckle, nose-to-nose basically the entire time. Very impressive, but how many of these fights can we really have? I know this was a grudge match, but is this going to be a classic Cody Durden style, or are we going to see some slickster come out?
I don't know, man. I just know that to be able to survive an attempt like that, that's something that you have practiced in the gym hundreds of times. So I think that the skill set, the veteran prowess, of Cody Durden is on display, and this is why he keeps racking up the wins, man. And this is why you can't keep betting against the man. When you start to detect the pattern, and you're like, dude, this guy does not have the name. He's cringy on the mic, like a heel WWE character. At the end of the show, he was doing like WWE punches. He was like looking like doing that type of stuff. I was like, all right, my man. However, you cannot discount my man Cody Durden. Big victory right there. All right, AJ. Real player on the scene. Apologies, it's showing so low. But Asu Amabayev, man, he put it on Ode Osborne. He said he was going to put it on Ode Osborne coming into the fight. He says, yeah, this dude got good wrestling, but we're going to wrestle. I'm going to submit him. And that's exactly what he did. Second round, rear naked choke where it wasn't underneath the chin. You just felt like you were going to break the man's jaw. And I'll tell you from experience, it does feel that way. It does legitimately feel like your jaw is going to break. And what would you rather tap? What would you rather do? Have your jaw broken or just tap and relieve the pain? Probably tap. Big win by him, but he looks like not just a formidable player in the division. He seems like a contender for the title. 18-2, former regional champ. What do you think?
I'm excited to see the growth and progression of Amabayev, especially because the way he was able to finish the fight with the pressure, the pace, the speed, all the stuff that goes into it. Very impressive fighter and looking like an absolute world beater from a place where, you know, he's going to be very focused on his fighting career. He doesn't have a lot of the other outside stuff kind of drawing him in. So I'm excited to see the level of this guy. And man, I feel not bad for Ode Osborne, but just like seems like this guy can't get a break. He's up and down on all his career, up in the wins, down in the losses, having that roller coaster. But then you get a matched up against an unknown that's an absolute world beater that will probably, maybe, hopefully be a champion soon. Like this guy, it's you can't catch a break. You got to feel a little bit of a way, but at least for Amabayev, bro, this dude has some serious stuff. Do you see any big holes in his game, Derick?
I mean, once you get tested against the cream of the crop in the UFC, things are going to be a little bit different. But right now, no, he looks sharp on the feet. He looks sharp in his grappling. And as long as he can get the takedown, I think that's what matters. But we say the same thing against all these really high-level grapplers. Somebody is going to come across who's either going to have sick jiu-jitsu to kind of like mitigate some of your grappling, or they're going to have really good sprawl and brawl capacities, man. So we'll see what's next. But I'm hoping he gets a high-level matchup so we can really see what those skills look like. All right, and then we got a couple here that we need to chat about. Billy Q over Damon Jackson. This was a big win, man. And what's crazy to me is that it started off a little shaky in pretty general Billy Q style, right? And I don't know why people think that there's any other fashion, but he gets better as the fight goes on. That's what we know about Billy Q. That is his game plan. He outstruck Damon Jackson 169 to 75 total strikes. And listen, man, he was able to survive the takedowns of Damon Jackson. He just was the better fighter over the down course of the fight. Are you surprised? I know this was going to be a really back and forth matchup, but are you surprised?
No, Derick, no. I'm kind of surprised we didn't see more striking out of these individuals because of how good they are on the ground. But I mean, this was a feel-good fight for me for Billy Q because I wanted to see him win. I knew he needed the win. He needs to kind of pump back up into his own, career going forward. But this was exactly what I thought this fight was going to be, man. A very tough match against two very tough fighters.
I thought it was just crazy how many people were writing him off after the loss to Edson Barbosa, that he was having a lot of success until he got the knee. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, Billy Q is now relegated down here on the prelims. No one really cares no more. And I'm just like, you guys are crazy. That's the what have you done for me lately? I called the Billy Q little slight edge over Damon Jackson, but I can't sit here and lie. Damon Jackson's very formidable himself, so it's not like you can discount him either. Jeremiah Wells, my sleeper against Carlston Harris. AJ, man, this I'm not going to lie to you, folks. This was a sleeper. Like sleep. This was a sleeper until it wasn't. Luckily, Carlston Harris mitigated the grappling of Jeremiah Wells, man, and just locked up that choke, man. Anaconda off of a takedown attempt. put him to bed, had him doing the shakeouts, you know, when you sleep. It's not a good feeling. Carlston Harris has this miraculous way of just pulling out victories here, AJ, but reality-wise, this is the only way you can beat Jeremiah Wells, right? You have to put him to sleep. I feel like unless you literally put the man unconscious, you're not going to beat the man.
100%. I do think this is one of those double-edged sword situations for Jeremiah Wells because he's so explosive, so strong, so powerful. Turns out Carlston Harrison used all of those weapons against him when he was able to get on the inside, like you said, put him to sleep, brother. And that's what you need to do to Jeremiah Wells. Homeboy's a savage.
Kyler Phillips, AJ, return to the Matrix. We haven't heard from him in a while. He gets a win over our boy, a fan favorite here, Raoni Barcelos. It was a pretty clear 29-28 victory. It was a back-and-forth fight, but Kyler Phillips displayed more weapons, just had a little more success overall. When we're looking at the total numbers, outstruck him 80 to about 52 or so, right? So big win by Kyler Phillips. Where are we going with Kyler Phillips, man? This dude is really good. A Kitakai specialist, as we've talked about many, many times, right? So mixture, amalgamation of all these different martial arts. But what are your thoughts on Kyler Phillips?
Now, I mean this with zero offense, Derick, and tell me what you think as well. But I feel like Kyler Phillips has this aura around him that he should be a bigger fighter. He should be a better fighter. He should have more name, more highlight, more connotation to his name. But you go 15 minutes with Raoni Barcelos, and no offense to Raoni Barcelos as well. But what are the top dudes going to do to you? What are the rest of the division going to really do? Because Raoni Barcelos, if I forget, he's like 38, 30-something around there. He's an older fighter that has a lot of miles on. Very, very dangerous, very fast, very powerful, has all the skills. But if the younger, faster, more explosive, more technical fighter can't put him away, that's what the Matrix was supposed to be all about, is just sleeping people left and right. That's how he entered the UFC. I thought Kyler Phillips' skill level his ceiling was going to be a lot higher. It turns out we see him falter a little bit. Do you feel the same way, or do we still have a lot of high hopes for the Matrix?
I got a ton of high hopes for the Matrix, man. You got to take into consideration this was a get-back fight, right? First time you fought in a couple years. You go against a trap game in Raoni Barcelos, who can beat any of these guys, but also is a very up-and-down fighter, who we've also said kind of fights to the level of his opposition. So when he fights a Kyler Phillips, I'm not saying that it was like fighting down or anything like that, but I just do feel like Kyler Phillips isn't the same name as a lot of these other guys where you get a little more motivated and hyped for. And that's the danger of Kyler Phillips as well, is that even though he has this aura around him like he should be the bigger fighter, currently he's not. But you have to respect him like he is still. So that's my thoughts on it. Either way, big win by Kyler Phillips, and just another setback here for Raoni Barcelos. And AJ, the last thing that we need to talk about, we haven't talked about it yet, your sleeper, Dennis Buzukja and Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson put on a performance, man, and this is what I expected in classic Sean Woodson fashion. Dennis Buzukja, Dana White Contender Series. My man dropped like 20 pounds in 3 days, so not the best, how would you say, performance that he probably could have put on. You saw he just got gassed out as the fight went on, but Sean Woodson did his thing. What were your thoughts?
Man, what do you not love about Sean Woodson? This dude, he has an awkward style of fight to him, but he is down to put some knuckles to some leather, man, and actually get to work. I thought this was everything I was expecting out of the fight. Just an absolute dog fight, just going back and forth. Yeah, but did Buzukja get tired? Yes. Did Sean Woodson kind of pull away at the end? Yes. But either way, it was still a very fun fight to watch. Bloody as can be. I think it was an elbow that cut up Buzukja. It was a good time all around. I was happy this one is a sleeper, especially following the domination that Albayev put on Osborne.
That's right. And I mean, listen, I think Sean Woodson, this was a good return to action for him. He said it himself. He's like, I'm not trying to do this fight once every 9 months type stuff no more. Let me get in there 3-4 months. If we see a more active Sean Woodson, I think that's when we start really seeing the development take place. But this dude is really good as it is. All right, folks, with that being said, that is your prelim pour-over. That was UFC Nashville. We broke down every single fight that was on the card. Hope you enjoyed. Like we said, a little left to be desired in the entertainment factor, but we learned a lot. Now, taking some of that knowledge, we're going to apply it towards the women's strawweight division in a little bit of a rankings review. You know, it's time tested. This is the Bloody Water Podcast, baby. You know what time it is. So, AJ, of course, we're going to take a dive into the women's 115-pound division to discuss what the future of this pretty stagnant, I guess I should say, division has been. Honestly, the last time that we saw solidification in the strawweight division at one of its peaks, Joanna Champion was the champion, right? She was the queen of the division. Ever since Joanna Jędrzejczyk lost her belt to Rose Namajunas, everything has been up and down, and we haven't had a clear consensus domination style champion, right? You had Wei Li, then you had Rose again, then you had Carla, now you got Wei Li again. All right, brother, this is the question. We bring up the rankings panel. I have Tatiana Suarez down at 9 because she came back in at flyweight, decided she's moving back down to 115, had not fought in 115, so I said, let's just throw you at 9, you're in the top 10, and let's see what you do once you fight one of these, top-level fighters. Well, she fights Jessica Andrade, who in my rankings is not even in the strawweight division anymore, but Jessica is 5 in the UFC ranking. So what does this automatically propel Tatiana Suarez to? Does she automatically get 5 and replace Jessica Andrade right here? Or do they leave her kind of in this mix? Talent-wise, we need to talk about that next, but where do you think logically she goes?
Well, logically, Derek, if you can see, I already have her on mine as number 4 with Jessica Andrade as number 5. And I did that specifically because that's where I thought talent-wise she could fight very, very well. I think she could probably get one past Yan Xiaonan, but then the next two above, Carla Esparza, Namajunas, Wei Li, all of those are very, very, very challenging fights for Tatiana Suarez going forward. Arguably, Namajunas might be the best fight for her, but we'll see on how that all unfolds. But that's why I said, arguably, Derek, this is all a very challenging one. I just think Tatiana Suarez has the ability to be a top 5 fighter in this division and probably 125 as well. That's why I put her at 4. Do you think that's far-reaching for what's been proven, or am I hitting on something?
Well, the reason I was shaking my head is because Namajunas moved up to 125, so she's out of the picture now. So with that being said, that really only leaves you Carla and Xiaonan for in your rankings right there, right? For me, kind of same thing. Carla, Xiaonan. You got a couple other people, Amanda Lemos, whatnot. It's going to be, there's some people who can give her some tough fights, man. But, if it's up to me, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I think you take Tatiana Suarez and then you move her. I think this is what the new ranking should be. And this is, what I maybe should update it to because Carla Esparza is inactive right now, just had a baby or going to have a baby or something like that. But remove Carla Esparza for now. You have Yan Xiaonan. You have Tatiana Suarez. I think that's 1 and 2. Yan Xiaonan, Tatiana Suarez, number 2. Just because Yan, you cannot discredit what she has done. I'm not talking about talent perspective. You have to also go within the range of what's happened in the strawweight division. So, are we calling our shot? This is the real question here. 2024, is Tatiana Suarez champion of the women's strawweight division?
Yes.
All right. I think so too. But I think that the biggest test is honestly going to be the current champion, obviously, Wei Li. And I think Wei Li gets discounted, man. And here's something that I want to bring up really quickly in this rankings review. Wei Li is going to be fighting Amanda Lemos. And a lot of people are putting a lot of credit on Amanda Lemos' name, saying that she can absolutely dismantle Wei Li. I don't want to let the cat out the bag too early, AJ, because this fight is going to be taking place. I actually don't know when this fight's going to be taking place. Sometime soon, I imagine, right? I don't think Lemos is going to be I don't think Lemos can give that many problems to Wei Li. I think Wei Li can dominate the fight. What do you think?
Call me crazy, Derek, but for some reason when you were talking about it, I feel like everybody's thinking Lemos is going to be able to spark Wei Li going in. I think it might be the opposite, brother. I think Wei Li might spark Lemos and then be able to put some submission on, some wrestling, some ground and pound. I don't know what the prop will be yet. We'll see about that prop lock, but I think the Wei Li is very much a bigger problem going forward, especially with the new growth she's been having, man. We talked about with Sandhagen, the evolution he's growing into. Wei Li can wrestle now, too. She can strike very, very well. She's slick. She's smart. She is super fast. I think Wei Li's a big problem in this division, man.
And that's the thing I think people are discounting. For whatever reason, is maybe because she doesn't speak English and she's out of the scene and she's not super marketable per se, right? But I do think that Wei Li is going to give a lot of people a lot of problems, and she can be that dominant champion if Tatiana Suarez doesn't come in here and just absolutely annihilate. We'll see what happens, but with that being said, that is your 60-second rankings review. A little bit longer than 60 seconds, but neither here nor there. All right, folks, UFC Nashville. What a card. Next week, we're talking about another fight night card, Vicente Luque versus Rafael Dos Anjos, and we have some good fights that are going to be on that card, some that I can highlight right now. AJ, you have the return of someone near and dear to you. Chris Daukaus is returning against Khalil Roundtree Jr. I don't know if my man is going to be Bangkok ready, but I have a feeling we're going to have to really keep an eye out on that matchup. What do you think?
Sometimes, Derek, I love having to bet with my Daukaus boys. Yeah. But this week, I'm going to have to do a little research because Khalil has been on the come up. I'm not saying I'm doubting the Daukaus boys, but I'm just saying there might be some heat behind this fight.
Polyana Viana versus Yasmin Lucindo, right? That's going to be a fun fight, would you say?
Ooh, man. Yasmin Lucindo has been climbing the ladder so fast. It's exciting to see her fight Polyana Viana. Very fun one.
Another one that I want to highlight, and then we'll hop up out of here. Jacqueline Amorim versus Montserrat Conejo. Folks, I don't know if you know who Jacqueline Amorim is. She is very new to the scene, absolutely a BJJ specialist, and we know Montserrat Conejo, right? I know that her bread and butter has been the head and arm toss, right? So we'll see. You got real BJJ versus somebody who pulls that little trick out the bag. We'll see what happens. That is it for us, folks. AJ, take us out of here.
Woo, folks, if you made it to this far, we have got to say thank you so much. But as always, make sure to subscribe, leave a like. We would not be here if it wasn't for you, and we would not be continue growing. And you know we're already shooting for 1,000. We've said it multiple times. We're close. We're not there yet, but we do have to have that thank you for you going out and doing that. And if you're winning money, we say it all the time. We've already earned that from you, brother. Come on, put it in the comments. Make sure you're sharing it with your friends. Let's go get this community growing even better. And as you can see down below, here are all the links. So if you want any other content, it's right here for you. Make sure you're clicking the subscribe button on all the platforms. We love you. We'll see you next week. It's going to be a fun one too.
That's right. That's it for us, folks. Until next time. Peace.